Today we'll be working on Nerd Herd on TryHackMe. Nerd Herd is a Chuck theme box. Chuck was a TV series that centered around a character who had a supercomputer downloaded into their brain by looking at images. Really cool TV series. I want to say it's like 6 seasons. Um, Pretty cool idea. Zachary Levi is the main lead of it, the guy who plays Shazam. So really cool series, really nerdy. Had a lot of big nerd references and stuff like that, and kind of more centered around like working at Best Buy. It's kind of why I like the series a lot too, is because I worked at Best Buy and could relate a lot to some of the shenanigans that happened in the store and stuff like that. So really cool show. So this box kind of hits home a little bit, and it gives you that nostalgia if you ever seen the show. So I got the box fired up on TryHackMe. It is a challenge box, so there's no guided prompts. It's basically, there's a machine, provide us the flags, and submit the flags to get the points to successfully win the machine. So with these boxes, there's usually a little bit harder for most people because they don't have any guidance. So we'll stay on our standard methodology. So what we need to do then is copy out our IP address. We'll put that into a targets file. So if we cat that targets file now, it'll have that IP address in there. Let's go ahead and get 2 windows. We'll split those up. We'll get both scans going. We're going to do our standard Nmap Scan, input list, targets. We're just going to do a T5. I'll put all formats, and we're going to call this init nerd herd. Then we can do the same down here, but we'll go more in depth. So we are seeing some NetBIOS, SMB, it looks like SSH, and FTP. We can get this going a little bit more. So we'll just change this to detailed. We're going to do on AO, SV, little s, big V, script scanning. Always add your script timeout so that Nmap doesn't basically just sit there and never finish. So we'll put 2 minutes on that. We'll get a little verbosity in there. So we're going to input list targets. We're doing as fast as possible. Output all formats of detailed nerd herd. We're doing advanced scanning, OS detection, service versioning, and then we're also invoking the Nmap scripting engine to run the categories of default, version, and vol with a script timeout of 2 minutes. And then put that out as very verbose. So we should see some details on this then. Let's go back and look at what we got currently that we just know. So we know we have a FTP and SSH, NetBIOS, and Microsoft SMB 445. So let's do an SMB map and see if we have any open ports, see if that gets us anything there. So we're doing SMB map against the host. Again, I just catted the targets, which keeps us at the same targets file. So anytime you do $sign and then open parentheses, this is like a bash interpretation, so it'll execute that command first and then replace that section of the command with whatever that results was. So we're catting out the targets file, which is the 10.10.86.106, and then replacing in that line. So we do see that there are there's one share. We have no access to it, so Anonymous doesn't have access to that. Samba on Ubuntu, so we believe this is not Windows then. So what we'll also want to do then is enum for Linux. Enum for Linux also works on Windows, and it gives you, again, a ability to kind of get a little bit more understanding of what's going on here. So for enum for Linux, we need to, I think, just put the IP. Yep. So we'll do the similar thing we're going to do. So it looks like our Nmap scan's finished, so we'll look at the results of Nmap while this is enum for Linux is doing its thing. I'll make this bigger so we can look at this more in depth. Okay, so we do have a FTP server. It is FTP 3.0.3. We'll want to look at that versioning, see if there's any exploits or anything like that. There was a exploit for FTPD that was pretty big. There was a backdoor, and then that if you just put the smiley face as a password, it would work basically. Standard SSH stuff. Looks like it's a weaker or older SSH. We're getting a lot of hits for some of these CVEs. So we could look at those if we really had to. And then 139 and 445. Out of the SMB stuff here, we see that it is a nerd herd. It's a part of a work group, so it's not domain controlled or anything like that. Again, nerd herd. SMB security mode. This is a big thing that you always want to look at when you're looking at these anything with SMB. You want to see what's it allow for the authentication. So we see user, we see the challenge response is supported, message signing is disabled. So this is a big one, especially on internals for Windows assessments. If this is disabled, then you pretty much have the ability to kind of do man-in-the-middle attacks, do the NTLM relays and things like that. So you definitely want to look for those and note those hosts. Same thing here. We see, again, message signing enabled but not required. So that's a more detailed scan. Let's go ahead and do all ports. Again, we won't do all the scripting for the all ports. And for all ports, we can put -p-. So we did get another port, 1337. So let's look at enum for Linux and see what we got so far from that. So this is the target. It's going to do a RID attack, which is a resource ID attack. Basically, these are standard user account levels, and by asking the server what's the user ID of 500, 501, 502, it's just a way to kind of be able to get some of these usernames out sometimes. So we see we again similar what we saw here, nerd herd work group. See workstation server, pro, Samba, Ubuntu. It did get a RID, so we see one here. We see an account named Chuck. The name's Chuck Partowski, so that's the main character of Chuck. So that's pretty cool that there's a user on there called Chuck. We see that again. We couldn't map any of the shares. We couldn't list out any of the information as anonymous. Minimum password has to be 5 characters. Reset account lockout counter says 30 minutes. Lockout count duration is 30 minutes, but the account lockout threshold is none. So this box could technically be brute forced, is kind of what this is alluding to, if you needed to. Most of these CTF boxes you shouldn't have to brute force. And then so like we said here, here's the RID cycling. This is going to be walking through that whole tree now and trying to find all these accounts. So when it does find an account, then you'll see it comes up with that. So 501 was nobody basically. And then 513 is a none. That's a group. There's Chuck. He's 1,000. So your admin and your kind of built-in accounts are usually the 500 to the 550, and then your users are going to be 1,000 and above. And this kind of gives you the idea of where they're at. Okay. So probably let's document some of the stuff that we got going on. All right, so we got Chuck as a user, so possible user. And again, you can use whatever text editor, something visual might help easier. When I do this or do pen test, usually like I'll take screenshots to kind of help me remember things. So we have port 21. Oops. 22139 and 445. So we know we want to check version of FTP, and that was VSFTPD. We have to go back and look what that was. For 22, SSH, we could put possible vulns. And then for this one, we know it's a Unix or Samba. And we had one file share that we don't have access yet to. It was listed here just a minute ago. Okay. So let's go. Let's look in search exploit vs ftpd. So none of the, it's not that version. It's the older version, 2.3.4. So nothing there. So we can also just connect to the FTP and see what we can get from that. The scripts, let's see. They were able to log in anonymously, so we should be able to do that too. Let's log into that and see what's going on. So for FTP, what we do is it's going to be FTP and then usually the port. So, sorry, the IP address. So providing anonymous logs us in. I spelled it wrong earlier. So FTP is a little bit funky. If you don't do the right way, you won't see all the files or you won't see things. So what I like to do is always do a dir a, because then I'll show any hidden files. Okay, so we have just one directory called pub. All right, and we have another. We have a file and we have a jokes on you directory. And again, the reason that we did dir a is if you do dir, you'll see anything with a period in front of it ends up being hidden. These are usually called hidden directories. So doing that dir-a makes sure that you don't miss anything. So we'll get this file here. So we should have that file now, and we're going to go into that jokes on you and see if there's anything in there also. All right, looks like that's it. Another thing I like to do on FTP servers is I'll do a cd/ just to make sure I get put out back to the main directory. Sometimes you can do cd / or cd ... slash ... slash ... slash. There's been times where it's not configured right, and that'll actually drop out into the root directory. So it's a good little short test to kind of do. All right, so once we got the files, let's see what we got. So we'll exit out of that. I'll clear up the terminal here. All right, let's make a loot box. Let's move our loot into there. So we got on. And You found me. Okay. So the only other IP or port number that came up was 1337. So we'll look at that here in a minute. It looks like it's an Apache HTTPD server. So it's got something going on there. One of the things that we could do is we could look at that real quick and then see if we need to run like GoBuster and let that run in the background as we look at the file after, so we can have that running while we look at the files that we just got. So let's just look this real quick. So it looks like a Ubuntu default page, and then a pop-up happened, and then saying that I left something for you here to find. So this is the default Ubuntu Apache server page. Looks like it has, has been modified because it had the script, and then there's something down here. It says maybe the answer that you're looking for is that in here. So this points to a video, the trash man surfing bird. Bird is the word, 1963. So don't know where that goes yet, but we can figure that out. Another thing that we want to look at is the page source. So you'll see some standard HTML stuff here. These are comments. So telling us to keep digging. Here's the on-body load function alert. So this is just a JavaScript, and then there's your alert boxes. This is usually similar to what you do whenever you do cross-site scripting. You do the alert function and such. Okay, so that's the only comment in there, and that's the only other additional thing that was added is that. So we'll make note of the title. Let's see, default page. All right, so we'll get GoBuster running on that, and then that way we can have something running in the background while we're figuring out other stuff. So we'll go GoBuster. URL. And then we're going to output the results of that into our folder here. What did we do wrong? There we go. It was -u instead, -url. So GoBuster should be working through that list now. Let's go back to our files. That found an admin. Looked like Intune for Linux finished up too. So there is also an FTP user that we see here. So Chuck, FTP user is 102. There's some built-in groups. That looks like that's it. So we'll exit that. All right, so in our loot we have hello on third, or hell on third. All you need is in the leet, okay, and then you found me PNG. All right, so let's see. So sometimes in these, you just have to look at the folder, the actual image. So we'll look at that and see if we got anything. That just looks like a standard image. Nothing stands out. So what we'll want to do then is we'll do some, stego checks and stuff like that. There's a room on TryHackMe that's all about stego. But what I like to do is I'll look at strings on the image, see if anything pops out. Oops, strings. So this is going to spit out any text that we see in there, basically any characters that are together that are more than 4. So we're looking just for easy strings, something that might have been hiding in here. So we're not seeing too much. So of course the only strings are this ext date create, which is the date it was created, modified, text software, inkscape.org, orientation, end, which is usually at the end of the PNG file. So this is metadata that just kind of is in there. So the next thing that we can look at is Xftool. So Xftool will kind of again give you metadata about the picture and things going on. So again, we see the Inkscape there, warning, minor text chunks found after PNG IDAT may be ignored by some readers. We're looking at um, date that it was created and modified. This one here is telling it that it's our date, the date that we did it. So that's looking at those strings, we can tell, like if we were looking for other files on the file system, what date to look for. The only thing that does kind of stand out is this here. That's something weird. All right. And then we could clear. So PNG checks out. Again, we're just looking for anything, any anomalies. Looking to see if StegHide had a GUI, but it doesn't. So StegHide's usually for JPGs, so that's not going to work on that one. We could also do binwalk and see if something kind of comes out of that. So we see here it identifies 3 types of headers: a PNG image, zlib compressed data, and then zlib compressed data there. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of normal with PNGs, or it's a little abnormal, but could be normal. So it's nothing to go dig into just yet. All right, so we got admin. Let's see what's on admin. Okay, looks like a login page. So we see those are not going anywhere. Okay, it is trying something. We did change the page up here. It's a get parameter. So let's look at the source code, see if there's something that maybe says something, or loading in some style sheets. These might help. So it looks like we got something here. So best thing to kind of do with this type of stuff is take it into CyberChef. If you don't know what it is, we can kind of start seeing if we can figure that out. So I know from the equal sign that that's base 64. So we see that gives us CI Bartowski. So that's another. So this kind of comes out a little bit more gibberish. We could take this as it is. Again, this contains non-printable characters, so if this was a password, it'd be, weird. We can see if something changes that. So it doesn't look like messing with it brings it out. So we'll just copy it and see what happens. We'll put that as a possible password because usually when someone does the colons like that, that's what they're trying to do. All right, so we got something from that page. Doesn't look like anything else, so we could try that on this page and see if we get anywhere with that. So let's copy that data. Let's do CRA bar Bartowski. So we see we put it up there and that didn't change anything. All right. So the only thing we don't know what to do with is this. Everything else we're kind of stuck. So we can put this in CyberChef. We could see what kind of points out. Um, Usually you're looking at some kind of decoding type situation. Some of these things, again, are going to need keys and whatever. So we don't have any of that information. We could try these other stuff. We could see if we can find this text somewhere in Google. So there's some write-ups, I guess, but that's not what we're looking for. So if you do that, it kind of shows some of these. This is kind of the thing that you have to think in the mindset of the the box creator, and this is the kind of part where it's not realistic. It's not something that you see. Like if I were to find some weird encoding on a pen test, I mean, unless it's completely black box, I'd basically ask the owner, what are you using to do that, to evaluate, to evaluate if that's significant or if that's what they actually should be doing. So like if I saw a weird text string, I would just be like, hey, I found this here. Um, what are you guys using to encode this or whatever? That kind of gets you to where you need to be at most of the time. So then if they're like, oh yeah, we're using base 64, it's the best ever, you can be like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. But what we need to do is kind of figure out what this is. So we went into a cipher identifier and analyzer. Pasted in the results, and it's saying it's a Veneer Cipher. So let's see if we find that here. Okay. It says it's a method of encrypting alphabetic text by using a series of different Caesar ciphers based on the letters of a keyword in a simple form polyalphabetic substitution. So substituting basically stuff to do that. So what do we got then? So we got Chuck. Let's try Chuck. That doesn't really get us anything more than more gobbled. We had FTP user. Got CI Bartowski. I'm just going to copy that. Okay. So that didn't work either. So we're just trying all these different words of things that we got. Again, this is where we kind of get into the this is not the right thing type thing. That we start to see something here. So we know the first half is bird. Okay, so bird is the probably supposed to be bird is the word, which would make sense. That's the title of the song. So if we do decode that, then we get easy pass. So that's all right. So now we got to figure out, well, where does this go, right? Okay, that didn't work there. So we're going to try SMB mount. We'll try to give it the user of Chuck. We have Chuck, we know. Oops. Oh, we're in loot, that's why. Host. User have to be a little u. Yep, little u. Alright, let's just put in the password. So this should be trying to log in as Chuck using that password and seeing if we have access. So now we do. So we have a successful password. That's what we're trying to find. So this is good. We'll copy this for our notes. At this point, I would take a screenshot too if that was what I was doing for a report. All right, so we got access now to this file share. So we need to see what files are available to us and pull those off. So we can do this either way. We could do SMB client or mount the drive. I'll just switch it up and do SMB client. So SMB client, we got to do the user as Chuck. Then you have to put in all these slashes. Might not like me doing that with the bash interpretation because it's the backslash basically kind of escapes it, so that's gonna mess me up. So I'll just put in the IP address on that one. All right, what am I not doing right? Do I have too many? Yes, I don't have enough. Okay, so we're putting in Chuck's password there. Just make sure it's still good on time. We are. Okay. So same situation here. Again, we're going to do dash dir all. There's no dash a, so we're just doing dir. It says SMB. So we just see a secret file. So we get the secret. We'll try to cd into another directory. We'll see if we can get any directory transversal. It doesn't look like that's what we're going to get. So any other commands that we can do? That looks like that's going to be all that's important to us right now. Yep. All right. So now we have that secret. We'll move that to our loot. Okay. So now we got another piece of information here. And it's saying that we need to go to this is not a directory. So this is a directory. It looks like it had directory listing turned on. So this is kind of showing us whatever was in this location, basically. So now it looks like we get Chuck's SSH creds. So actually, we'll copy both of this and put that into. All right, so we should be able to SSH now. We have Chuck's password. So let's see if that actually works. Let's clear that up. SSH Chuck at. Oh. So we just pasted in his password there. All right. So now we're on the box. What I like to do then is, since I'm on the box, I want to create. I just want to have this access in two different places, so I don't get stuck waiting for something to finish or execute. While I already have the password in my clipboard, might as well, right? Okay, so let's derive some information out of this. We say that we're being welcomed to an older version of Linux. So we maybe just create a thing on this point now. All right. So first thing you'd like to do is kind of look at your current directory, look at what's going on. Uh, so the dating structure is weird. Oops. Yeah, see how November 24th? This is saying EYL CAS. So the system's in almost like some other language or something. There's a bash history. So again, this is great why we have this. It might just be us, what we've done so far, but it's good to always look at the bash history. Exit, su, exit, ifconfig, clear, ftp localhost, clear, desk, cd home, desktop, clear. Why are you looking at my logs? Okay, so they've put something probably in the desktop directory. Nope. Well, we do have the user text there, so that's good. We can read that. So that's where the user text is. So that should be a flag for. Yep. Okay. Let's just add an hour. All right. So some common things to do, right, is let's do sudo -l. We do have the password for Chuck. It is right here. Sorry, user Chuck may not run sudo on nerdherd. Okay, so sudo l is basically, it would list any sudo type access that we would have. So it's a common, easy way to kind of get privilege escalation. So at this point, what we would need to do is figure out how we're gonna move from user Chuck to root. And this is where you kind of start relying on like Linenum and stuff like that. So let's get that going. So cd opt tools. linps. Okay, so there's linps there. Python 3m http.server. Okay. And then let's create, can we write in this directory? Yes, we can. So with this being a Linux system, there's Xauthority, desktop, examples.desktop. There's a .config. In a normal environment, what this is telling me, this is like a actual Ubuntu GUI. And what I would do is, probably like embed a command into every file that would, be clickable or usable or standard or whatever, and basically get the user to kind of execute something. Again, though, most of the time, what that's going to still get us just the user level. This is still going to be Chuck if we were to do that. So we're not getting anywhere, but that could get us multiple sessions or persistent session or things like that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get our enum scripts. So one of the newer things that TryHackMe did is now they put your IP address that you're connected to up here. 212, 212, 219. And again, our web server is going to be on port 8000, and we want linenum.sh and linps. Okay, both files are downloaded. They are on the server now. So we can close this, we could exit that. Let's make both executable. So chmod plus execution bit for all files in this directory, which is going to be both of them now. So we would run linenum. We could tee that into enum results.txt. Okay, and we'll let that kind of do its thing. So we see kernel information, we see more kernel information. So Chuck we did fine. Chuck is part of his own group. That's us running the Linenome. Here's some group members. There's admin users. Okay, so we do see Chuck is a user. There is a guest account that goes into temp guest. There's that FTP user. They have no login. So this is a cron job. So these, you're just kind of looking to see if there's something not running as root, which most of the time it's not going to on a real system. But I mean, it is going to be running as root on a real system. It's printing out the networking. So if this had different network addresses, then it might be a hop. It might be having Docker on it or something like that. We do see that we're in EC2 instance. The name server is .2. There's our port. So again, we can confirm any of the ports that we were listening to. So we did see all these ports. Some processes. So that's an interesting one. Whoopsie. So what we're going to look up is they're called GTFO bins. Nope. Okay. So that's the stuff that we were running basically. All the config files require root access, your libsystemd files, root access, system files. root. So it has netcat on there, wget, gcc, and curl. There's a couple compilers installed, so that might mean that we need to compile something. Here's your sudo files. So these are ones that could again be ran as that. We see ping 6. What else do we see? F user mount. We're just looking through these and seeing if any of these would give us the ability to kind of privilege escalate. PK. Oh, there's one, maybe. Let's see what this does. I think this is going to stop us though, because when we tried sudo earlier, whoops, it did not let us do that. We want a bash shell, so we'll try bash. Okay, yep, so not gonna let us do that. So none of these where we're trying to do a suit or gid is gonna work because we don't have that ability to run those. More configs. Yeah, we looked at his history. There's some backup files. We could see if we can see these. Permission denied. Oops. Okay, so not much out of that. We could do linps. I think the next thing we're going to need to start looking at is come on. All right, so while that's going, we know what version of OS it is. So I think what we need to start looking for then is kind of exploits. I think that's what the level we're going to have to get to. So again, we'll pull up exploit DB. Oops, exploits. So with this, it's kind of just, you're kind of guessing. You're kind of looking to see what might work. Just trying different terms, different things that you know, versions, stuff like that. So we're going to try Ubuntu local priv. Again, we know we're running Ubuntu. We want to escalate local privileges. So what we'll then do is we'll kind of just look at this and going top down and see, does it match what we know, what's our criteria, um, things like that. So for this first one, we know that we're running 1604. So this could work 14.4 2.0. So greater than and then less than 4.8. So we're in this range here. So that would be legitimate. (14.4.0). So that one's not going to work. This is 4.8. Less than 14.39, so this one might work. Less than 4.4.0-21. We are 31, so that's not going to work. Nope. Maybe. Alright, so let's work with these three, what we got, see what we got first. So proof of concept, local root exploit for CVE to 2017. So Ubuntu Xenial, we know that we are on Xenial from our last run of the script. If we go back to whoops. Alright, so if we go back to our test, we cat the enum results. So this is why you put those in that text file so you have it, and why it's great to have two sessions because again we're able to look at this stuff. Alright, Ubuntu Xenial 4.40 and 4.80 kernels. Alright, so we are running we're running 4.4.0. We're just on -3.1. So we can try this out, see if this works. So basically you compile it, run it, it checks the things, and then if that works, then we'll get root. So again, you want to kind of understand these things before you run them, what's going on. For kernel level exploits, I mean, honestly, there's no easy way. Like, that's what this is doing. So Xenial 4.0, there's 41. Yeah, see, 31's not even in here. So these are the binary bits that it's going to go right. That's the payload code. So for our kernel, like we're running this says it's trusty, but we're not running trusty. We're running Xenial. So I don't think that's going to work. See, there's Xenial. The only Xenial ones that they have is right here. Those are your two 4.4s on Xenial. So we'll skip this one. I don't like running code that we don't have any idea on. Okay, so this is 4.0.31 generic. Okay. So basically compile it, then run it. Okay. Let's give this one a shot. I'm not seeing anything in here that, I mean, this is telling you all the different things that it's doing, but there's no way to easily explain this, like what it's doing. Um, it's mapping stuff to permissions and then trying to override those permissions is kind of what it looks like it's doing. So we'll grab the code on GitHub. All right, we'll make another test. We're going to call this exploits. It's going to take a second. Okay, so then you just basically compile it. So GCC test1c, we want to put an output, exploit 1. Okay, so it's going to compile the C code, and it's going to generate executable basically, name exploit 1. Okay, so that gets done. There's exploit 1. Based on what that said, we just run it. And there we go. So that's who am I. There we go. So that's bin bash root shell. So that gives you the ability now to get to root. So if we cd into root, oops, we can see the root file. There is a small bash history, so let's cat that and see if there's anything in there that might give us. So it looks like there's another flag in here. So this kind of also will give you the idea of if we maybe missed anything. Um, so they did the admin directory, installed VSFTPD, added the user anonymous. Looks like they changed the config. They restarted it. They made a directory. Then they added the FTP user. So that's where they're linking that user to the anonymous one, basically modifying it. Yep. Then they changed it to so that they have no logon. Set up a firewall to allow FTP and FTP data. That's the USW, or UFW. Made a public directory. They put that as no button, echo test into there. They put the test in the pub. Then they removed test, and then they copied it in the PNG file. They also made a jokes on you folder. Then they touched the hell on third. Installed Samba, configured Samba, restart Apache. Then they made the directory. They touched the creds in the directory. That's where we got the creds from. They also copied the PNG to the desktop. Clear, Apache, Samba. There's the classified directory. There's the secret. Looks like they pulled a bash history from a IP address and then exited. Let's see. Oh, well, there you go. That's interesting too. So that's not there. There's two other files. So root's the one that we just did. I guess we should look at the user flag then too. Okay. How about user? Is there another user? Guess we didn't look at it. Okay, so that's both there. Let's make sure that these work then. So if you've gotten this far and you're just copying this and you're not really learning anything, so don't do that. Okay, so that's good, that's good. And then let's see if this one that we found in the history is the bonus flag. Come on. Oh man, come on.